welcome to 30, Flirty, and Nerdy. I am really excited for today's episode because it is another in-person episode with Wild Mule. Yes, that is his name, Wild Mule, but we call him Mule. We met at a local bar here in town, and he does this act called TromboTheClown. If you're in Vegas, you might have heard him. If not, you're in for a treat. And I'm really excited because whenever I would see Mule, he would always be in clown costume, and it's like, why? What is the story behind this? Who are you? What made you start this whole journey? And that's what we're going to get into today. So we're going to get into all things Mule, and we're going to learn a little bit about him. And so, yeah, welcome, Mule, to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so excited you're here, and I want to start off with, what's your story? Like, who is Mule? How would you describe yourself to people that don't know you?
That's a tough question. I don't often think about myself, to be honest. I'd say I'm a normal guy, but nobody I know would say that at all. So it's a little tough. I just try to have a good time and make people laugh and stuff. So that's me in a nutshell.
You're a funny guy that likes to make people laugh.
I hope I'm a funny guy that likes to make people laugh. I guess it's subjective.
So I kind of want to get into your character, Trombo. What was your journey like finding that character, and why did you decide to make this a personality of sorts?
I've always liked entertaining, even from a very young age, making other kids laugh and stuff like that. And always had a bit of a dramatic flair with some of the stuff I would do. So it's always been something that's part of me. As a young adult, there'd be a couple times I'd go out and like for Halloween or like a special occasion or something, dressed up like a clown, like just mess around, get into character a little bit. And I'd always have a great time. It just started there and went from there. And I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but I just had it in the back of my head for a while where it was something I'd think about every once in a while. And then COVID hit, and like everybody else, I had nothing to do because everything was shut down. And with nothing but free time, I'd get pretty bored and start doing interesting things or fun things around the house. And yeah, it just there's a couple guys I used to hang out with every once in a while. We take our COVID tests, make sure we're all good, and then they come over, have some drinks. And one day I just decided to throw on some clown makeup and clown outfit, just as shits and giggles kind of thing. And we had a great time, and I was like, you know what, this is fun. I should see if I could actually do something with it. And they were super supportive. It's my buddies Gustavo and Clay. They've been with me from the very beginning of it. And I think they've been to like 99% of my shows. They've both missed like one or two. In 2 years, that's not a lot. But yeah, so it was just kind of like a gradual thing that's always been there, and it just built into something as a creative outlet.
And when you say creative outlet, was there something that was kind of draining you that you needed to search out this outlet?
It wasn't so much draining me, but I was always looking for a way to express something, and I wasn't sure what it was. Like, I always looking for something, some way to entertain and stuff like that. But nothing ever felt like I was really scratching that itch or hitting that mark. Which, of course, has changed now. I'm very happy with that.
And so you said you came up with Trombo just one day out of the blue. What made you decide, like, to create TromboTheClown specifically? Was it part of a mythos that you had in the back of your mind? Did you play it off of something that you really loved? Or was it, like you said, just you were having fun, hanging out? Because for people that don't know or never been to one of your shows, in your skits and shows, you hurt yourself a lot with a lot of different things. If people don't know, he has other like you staple yourself or have them staple you, and you like rip off a piece of paper or something and you start bleeding, and it's what the heck? And then also too, so you staple your body, you have someone take it off of you and you start bleeding. And then another aspect of your show is you create this crazy Pepto-Bismol cocktail that has tons of different stuff on it, and you drink the whole thing that can't be healthy and has to be completely disgusting. Like, what made you decide to go through all of that? Why would you say you had a bit of a masochist personality included in Trombo, or is it just something you're like, fuck it, Like, what is your like thought process behind all that? Because that's what I find interesting.
I just don't know how to juggle, so I had to do something on stage.
Is that it?
A lot of it's just like little things gradually. The whole staple thing. Went to basically a party, and there was a sideshow guy there, and he was doing stuff like that, putting stuff in a blockhead, putting stuff in his nose, stapling himself, putting needles in his arm and stuff like that. And I was like, man, that's really cool. That's awesome, control your body and stuff like that. And then I talked to him, and he was a complete asshole. So I was just like, yeah, I could fucking do that. Fuck you. And basically that was the start of that. I just go, man, this guy was a complete jerk for no reason. I'm gonna start this just to show he's not special, kind of thing. So it was a little vindictive, I must say. And I had approached him very much, hey man, loved your show. And he was just like, yeah, get away from me, nerd, or some stuff like that. Just like completely out of left field. And the drinks, those started as a joke. One day I was just like, oh man, I don't have a lot of mixers, folks. I've got like Jägermeister and I got Dayquil. And I mixed them together and drank it. And everyone's, oh, that's crazy, man. And so we all laughed and stuff. And then just stuff like that because it was funny. But then when I started the show, I was like, hey, I could probably still use that, but just add a bunch of other crazy stuff to it. Pepto and like sardine oil and oyster sauce and
I'm cringing right now for those that don't see it.
Yeah, I normally put in 5 or 6 different things.
What does that taste like?
It just depends on what's in it. It's never good. It's never, man, this is delicious. It's never, at least for me, it's never too much.
Have you ever thrown up with all the have you ever thrown up with all the different flavors?
No, not yet.
I'm
always trying to push it though, just to see if maybe this show, maybe, but it hasn't happened yet.
Oh man.
But
I just remember the first time I saw you do it, I could not watch you do it because it's just seeing all the stuff you put into the drinks. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
And so when you did the staples for the first time on yourself, like, how did that feel? Like, were you like, oh, fuck, this hurts a lot, I want to do it again? Like, what made you want to continue doing it?
A big part of it was, at that point, I had already kind of decided to be a clown, or at least give it a shot, see where it took me kind of thing. And I had already done some sideshow stuff, like I'd smoke a cigarette with my nose or something like that, and like put it out on my arm and eat the rest of it, just crazy stuff like that. But I knew I needed something else. So I talked to a friend of mine who's also a clown. His name's Chris. And I was just like, hey man, this is what I'm already doing. What's some recommendations? And he was like, stapling, this and that. And he gave me a couple ideas. And so I was like, yeah, I'll give that a shot and see how that goes. And and I just went from there. With the first time I did it, I bought the stapler from Walmart, filled it up, got in the car, put the stapler up to my arm, and just couldn't do it. Because I was like, oh man. Like, you always have it in your head, taking a staple is going to be like the worst pain in the world. Because when you're in elementary school, teachers are like, don't mess with that. You're going to hurt yourself. So I was like, ah. So I had to actually have somebody else do it. And when they did it, and I went, oh, that's not so bad. I can do that. And I just went from there.
Have you found that you could staple yourself now? Or do you have to have people staple, like, for all your shows?
Oh, I can do it myself. I actually think I find it easier to do it myself. It's a good way to get crowd interaction is to have other people do it. And the crowd sees their reactions as they're doing it. And it's pretty good that way.
Do you find, like, you have a lot of scars from that? Or do you not really care too much about it?
Body-wise, not many. I'm starting to get a few scars on my forehead from the staples.
I see a little bit.
Yeah, but that's generally because with the bone right there, it's weird how it doesn't react the same. Like if I staple my arm, there's not all that much pushback because there's muscle in between. But when it's on the forehead, it's fairly close to the bone, so it's just bam.
Oh man!
So the staple itself will slice my head.
Oh, so it's so crazy to me because like teachers and everyone says don't staple yourself because it hurts too much, and I don't think I ever would because one, I don't like the pain. So it just makes me interested that you do it almost like once, like a week, right? Or like every other week or something, like pretty often. So it's like, how? So my biggest thing was, how do you like this? How do you do this? Why do you do this? Thank you for answering those questions just because I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine it.
Yeah. I try to not do the same areas within 5 days of each other. Just for, I don't know what would happen, but it just seems like it would suck. Kind of thing.
So I wanted to ask you a couple more questions as well. What do you say, because your character Trombo is very extroverted, are you more extroverted like your character, or are you more introverted, or a little bit of both?
I'd say a little bit of both. When I'm out, I'm fine talking with anybody, having a good time, all that stuff. But I'm more at home, or if I'm one-on-one with somebody, I like a much more tame and take it easy kind of thing. And I also, if I go out at night, that lasts me for a while. If I go out too much in a week or something like that, I'll not have a good time and start to, I don't want to say freeze up, but I'll start to be a little bit more quiet than the rest of the group kind of thing. So I space it out so I'm still having a good time, able to interact with everybody well.
So you're like introvert, extrovert.
Yep. And yeah, I just get
Or
overwhelmed, I guess, if it's too much too often kind of thing.
That's good. You take time for yourself. That's important.
Oh, yeah.
So how did your family feel when you were mentioning Trumbo to them? And what was their reaction like? Have they come to any of your shows? Do they come? Do you want them to be there? What was their thought and feelings towards him?
So my family wasn't all that surprised. They know I've got a flair for performance and stuff like that. They support it. My parents mainly don't want to go because they just don't want to see me bleeding all over the place. They're like, I can't watch that. I can't see it. I'm glad you're doing well. But yeah, totally fine with it.
That's awesome. It's really important to have family support for sure. So another question I have for you is, how do you get into show mode? So you talk being introverted, extroverted, you need time, relax. But how do you find yourself getting into the character? Do you have a ritual you do every time? Do you just put on the makeup and you're like, I'm ready? Like, what does that kind of ritual look like for you to get into character?
It's a combination of things. Putting on the paint is a bit of it because it usually takes me about an hour to get all the paint on and get it all nice looking. And during that time, of course, it's very meticulous with how you're moving and stuff. So you have to slow down to do it. You can't just be like, throw it on and there we go. You have to do it like nice and slow. So kind of, I don't want to say meditatious.
It can be.
But it's very similar where it forces you to just take it easy and go. And then also basically the drive to wherever I'm going. I'll put on some music, energetic music, a lot of like Mad Caddies and ska music and stuff, some like fun kind of stuff. And that just gets me in the mood as well. So I'm listening to that as I go, and going over in my head what I'm doing that night, whether it be the show I have every month or a bachelor party or a pub crawl, or because, I get hired to do different stuff, which is definitely fun. But yeah, so a lot of it's a process with that. And then usually when I get to the place, the final step is kind of like it used to be that I would just, I keep saying,
No, you're okay.
It used to be that I would have to pump myself up a little bit, but now I've been doing it so long that I can almost do it kind of like a light switch and just like, drop my shoulders and I'm ready to go, which I guess comes with time.
But you do have the initial putting the makeup on, listening to upbeat music, driving, and that's all part of a ritual, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And it definitely gets you in that mood. So I see how it could easily be when you get there, you're on, because you already had that time to process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another question I have for you is, where do you see Trombo's future? Do you see it becoming bigger than it is? Do you see yourself having a YouTube channel, like with your own show? Like, what are your thoughts behind it? Do you just do it for fun? What is like the future of Trombo?
That's an interesting question, because part of me wants it to just take off and be like, that's what I do for a living. I've got this big show on the strip or something. But I also realize that if it becomes work, I'm probably going to wind up not liking it. And then it's just a job. And then it's, I've got to put the paint on and stuff like that. So it's kind of, but both sides are still appealing, keeping it as, because I do make a little money off of it. I'm not doing too bad, but it's not like enough to live off of. But there's the one side that's keep it as a hobby and just enjoy yourself. And the other side is, but if you're good at it, why not do something with it? So it's just something I'm still rolling over in my head. As for right now, I do a decent amount of side gigs. I've got a monthly show at the Double Down, and that's not going anywhere. They're pretty happy with the crowd I bring in and how that's going. I also don't feel like, since things are steady and good that there's any rush for me to make any of these decisions.
That's awesome that you have a steady gig at the Double Down. I have yet to go, but I want to go the next time. Is it like once a month you have it or every other month?
Yep.
Or
That one is every third Wednesday. Next one coming up would be the 15th.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. And it's pretty wild. It's called Trombo's Wheel of Fuckery. And
The name is just pure gold.
Yeah. And accurate. But basically, the whole premise is I go up there and it's a game show, and everybody gets a raffle ticket. And we call you up and you spin the wheel, and you can win free drinks and free merchandise, stuff like that. But there's also a lot of other stuff on the wheel. There's truth or dare. There's, let's see, a staring contest, which has a certain trick to it.
Oh, no.
We just this last time we started racing as part of it, and
So it's
people
rated
get a
R,
place.
people.
Oh yeah. This is it's at a bar and it's 21 and up. But also there's bands that play with this. There's burlesque. There's other kinds of talent. Like we plan on having a magician, I think, in April. There's vendors, free popcorn, all sorts of good stuff. So it's well-rounded. There's a lot going on. It's not happening all at once, of course. There's something for everybody, kind of thing.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. And then I also do my act as well, my sideshow stuff. Yeah, it's a great time.
That's really fun. I want to go to the next one.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Alrighty. I guess my last question for you then is you're in your late 30s, as we talked about. You don't have to say how old you are if you don't want to, but what would you say? Hold on, let me start this over. I always mess up at this part.
It's all good.
Okay, so my last question for you is what advice would you give those that are about to be 30 or those that are 30 about what 30s is like, and what advice you wish you had? Because you're, like I said, towards the end of your 30s, you've been through a lot. What would you like to say to people?
I would say if you feel like there's something you'd like to do, just take that leap. I could have started being Trombo probably about 10 years sooner.
Really?
Yeah. But I had a friend at the time where we had a falling out, but I told him, I said, hey, look, I'm really thinking I want to do this. I think I might have talent in it, that kind of thing. And he said, if you become a clown, I will lose all respect for you. And that kind of tells you, that wasn't why we had the falling out, but it tells you what kind of guy he was. So we wound up having a falling out eventually. But because he said that, I put it off. I was like, I don't want, because I wasn't just thinking about him. I'm like, maybe other people feel this way, so I'm just not going to do it. And yeah, I wasted a lot of time, and I wish I hadn't. Take the leap. Make sure you have supportive friends and people who care about you like that. And not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to agree with it. If they care about you, they'll at least be like, whatever. They're not going to just diss on you for it. And really the worst thing that can happen is you suck at it and you just don't do it. But if you keep it in there and you just never do it, you're going to regret it. So if you got something you want to do, just give it a shot.
And you've done it, and you've been doing it for a couple of years, and you have friends that go to every show. And you mentioned earlier to me, I forget if it was recorded, but you did mention that you have friends that come see you all the time.
Yeah. And I've got a decent group of people who show up. A little decent core group. So, yeah. So that would be probably my advice. Just chase that dream and see where it goes.
I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited to see the next show and just where your character will go and where you'll take them and your journey. And thank you so much for explaining how you got there, because I had so many questions.
Yeah, no problem at all.
How, why, when, who, what. So thank you so much for answering all these today and just being vulnerable with me.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely.
Hey friends, thank you for listening to today's episode. Please take a moment to follow and review this podcast so it could reach others. Also, if you leave a review, I'll be sharing your review in the next episode. Lastly, if you want to be part of this growing podcast, chat about your life, your profession, passions, or if you have advice that you wish you had at 30, please sign up at the link provided in the show notes. I would love to have you as a guest on the show. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.